Welcome to The Strength of Sensitivity. This podcast is brought to you by Dr. Kyra Mesich and her higher self and spirit guides. And that's it. Hello, sensitive soul. I'm so glad you're here because this show is to empower you to create a life of emotional balance and peace. Would you like to invite more light-hearted joy into your life? Well, my prescription for you is radical self-acceptance, starting now. Episode 2, Claim Your Power Over Money. Hello, sensitive souls. I'm Dr. Kyra Mesich, author of The Strength of Sensitivity. Welcome to the podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about a very practical topic, and that is money. I've noticed that sensitive souls seem to have a very tenuous relationship with money. And, there is almost no worse stressor than when we have the money freak out. When there is financial extreme stress and fear that really pulls us off center about as far as possible. And that's very unfortunate. So that's why I wanted to create this topic, as it is a very important one to keep us centered and have some new perspectives on our relationship to money. Now, let me say off the bat that I'm not going to be talking about any of the typical concepts about money in this episode. It's going to be some really new thought and some new paradigms about our relationship with money, because I know that many of you, you're sensitive souls, you've already tried to figure this out for yourself. So you may have already studied things about the law of attraction. You may have already looked at your belief systems about money. Maybe you've taken an EFT class to try to understand the beliefs about money that you learned in your family and have let go of a lot of those. A lot of us have done a lot of work around these beliefs about money and yet still find ourselves struggling to have sufficient abundance and flow of money into our lives. So what gives? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, we are going to talk about the difference between money and currency. Money is a word that's thrown around, and it's in our face all the time. It's used in headlines, it's used in stories, it's used on the news, it's used constantly, this word money. But to tell the truth, in our society, money does not exist. Money is something that has intrinsic value. A money-based society means that the bills that are printed would have a backing of gold or silver. My understanding is that way back in the day, when dollar bills and coins were first created in the United States, they were actually notes, gold and silver notes. A person could take this bill to the correct government entity and get reimbursed the amount of gold or silver that bill was for. So if it said $20, they would receive $20 of gold if they wanted to cash that in. That ended in the Depression era. President Roosevelt changed those rules so that people would not come to the government and want to demand their gold be given to them. So he changed that. Then in 1971, Nixon completely eliminated the connection between our currency supply and the gold standard. So money actually does not even exist in our economy. What we have is currency. Currency is these dollar bills and coins that we have, which are bestowed upon them a value by the Fed and the government, but it isn't a true, real, tangible thing. That's currency. So the first thing I'd like us to do to change our relationship with our finances is to experiment with striking the word money from our vocabulary for a while, because it doesn't even exist. Money is a very emotionally laden word, besides the fact that it is not a true concept. A lot of us can you recognize that right now. If you think of the word money, if you're having money issues and financial concerns, then you probably get tense the moment you even think of the word money. Now think of the word currency. I would doubt that you have any response in particular to the word currency. So there's two reasons why we are not going to use the word money for a while. And I'm going to do my best to not use it for the rest of the podcast. Number one, it's an emotionally laden, heavy word. Number two, it's not a factual concept anyway. Currency is what we have. So, let's now talk about this relationship we have to this currency as sensitive, empathic souls. Let's use a metaphor for a moment of currency as a person. So let's think about a moment what this currency is. As I just explained, currency is not backed by anything tangible of value. And currency is created by those who have the ability to be in charge of this, basically out of thin air. So let's consider for a moment what it's like for you as a sensitive, empathic person when you encounter someone who is very fake. They're not really genuine. All of us have had that experience where you have an interaction with someone and it leaves us as empaths with an uneasy feeling. This person isn't being honest with me. They're not being genuine. They're full of hot air. I'm not getting a good sense of feeling around them. Our feelings about currency are going to be similar. The energetic foundation of currency is lacking. It's not a real, genuine, valuable object. For a different metaphor, many of us love rocks and stones and crystals, right? We feel pulled to them, they're interesting, and for many of us sensitives who are aware of what we're feeling, we can hold a rock or a crystal and we can very clearly feel the energy of that stone. And if you hold an onyx for a while, notice what that feels like, and then later you hold a rose quartz. Very, very different feelings. It's very easy to sense the difference between those tangible, energetic objects, which have their own intrinsic value. Currency, on the other hand, does not have that. It is almost an imaginary figment. What we as empaths sense, what we sense about currency, is honestly all of the thought forms and emotions that people put into it. And primarily, the thought forms and the emotions that human beings put into currency are fear-based. Fear, desperation, or perhaps a greed or a power kind of feeling. So let's ponder that for a moment again. Are those the kinds of energies that we as sensitive souls gravitate toward and feel comfortable with? So if you're following what I'm saying here, currency itself doesn't really have much of an energy per se. It's purely a unit of trade that isn't backed by anything particularly tangible. But people put a lot of energy into it. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about thought forms. People put a lot of thought into money. That creates thought forms, an energy that we as sensitive people can feel. And those emotions that people have are also part of that. And again, in our society, most people are putting an energy of fear or power misused or worry into these bills that we're trading around, this currency. Now don't despair. It might sound like I'm saying, great, as a sensitive person, I'm never going to have a positive relationship with currency. No. What we're doing first is laying out what has been the sticking point that we haven't been aware of. Like I said, this podcast is a completely new paradigm and a new way for us to really approach currency as sensitive souls. It's completely possible for us to go back to the metaphor of a person. Let's say there's a person that's kind of fake, and genuine. You feel a little uncomfortable around them. They're not the greatest person that you love to be around. But let's say you just need to. Perhaps they're a neighbor or a coworker or a classmate. So you have to interface with this person on a regular basis. Many a sensitive person realizes that by being open and positive and asking questions of this person, they often will be able to pull out the more genuine components of that person's personality. So in other words, as you get to know a person better, you find more to like about them, and they're not as annoying anymore. If you haven't had that experience, give it a try. It often does work, because a person's ingenuineness usually is based on their own trying to hide who they really are. So when you are a little vulnerable with them, they'll be a little more vulnerable with you. You get to know each other a little more, and then create a more tangible, genuine reality to your connection with that person. So we're going to do this right now with money. So what I'd like you to do is, if you can, go ahead and grab a bill right now. Doesn't matter if it's a $1 bill or a $20 bill or whatever you have. If you're in a situation where you can't actually get a bill right now, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Just imagine that you are holding a $5 bill. And get yourself comfortable, seated comfortably. If you need to pause this to go get your bill, please do that and then come back. So now that you have your bill of any denomination, hold that, sit comfortably. It's best if you have both feet flat on the floor, your back nice and supported. Take in a couple nice deep breaths. Tune in with the core of who you are in your solar plexus, turning your attention away from your thoughts and your mind and into your body. Now just hold this bill, this currency, in your hands, and say to this currency, I would like to get to know you more genuinely. Who are you? And how can we get to know each other better? This may seem about the silliest thing you've ever done or said in your life, but just go along with it, because the alternatives of always living in financial estrangement from this currency is the other alternative. So let's make the choice to be silly right now and connect in with this currency that we're holding, or imagining that we're holding. So, saying again, I would like to know more about you. And for demonstration purposes in this podcast, I'm going to relay the information that I'm getting from my bill. Then when we're done with the podcast, you can do the same with yours. So I'm saying to my $1 bill that I'm holding, I would like to know more about you. And it is responding to me, I'm not as bad as you might think. How so? I ask. You have been associating me with bills that you must pay, necessities, not always with fun and joy and entertainment and things that excite you. But I am just as much for that purpose as for keeping the electricity running in your home. So now I'm asking this currency about this concept that I talked about of it not being backed by a tangible gold or silver intrinsic value. And it is responding. That really doesn't matter in the immediate moment of your life, now does it? Yes, it's good to teach people what I really am, so that they don't have a misguided concept of a value that doesn't actually exist. But the benefit of this is that you set the value for me as you want it to be. Since there's no intrinsic set value, you can create your own value of what you would like me to be. So what I'm saying to my dollar bill is that I would like currency, the intrinsic value of currency for me, to be in fun units and enjoyment units, perhaps also appreciation units. So it is saying back to me, units of appreciation and fun. They'll lump those together. So since I'm holding a $1 bill, this would be 1 unit of appreciation and fun, which makes me feel a lot better about it and a lot more likely to invite it into my existence, because I have now defined what this currency is for me, rather than where I was feeling before, an emptiness and a disconnection. So let me see what else this dollar bill would like to say to me. So remember, it's saying remember the units of appreciation and fun. But of course I'm going to want to invite more and more units of appreciation and fun into my experience. And one last thing to share with all of you listeners is that not to worry when you are sitting with your currency if you don't hear as Dr. Kyra does. Don't worry about that. You want to get a feeling and an inspiration. Some of you will actually be able to meditate deeply and hear. Some of you will just get more of a kinesthetic feeling. Some of you may see a visual that will help you understand this. But get the big message here is that you yourself can define what currency is for in your life. That is the benefit of it being a fiat currency that does not have a preset energy. Also, for those of you who might be wondering, when Dr. Kyra talked about the thought forms and the fear or the worry, the emotions that people often put into money, this is now being overridden by you as you take control of how money serves you in your life. As a sensitive, empathic soul, you may have been picking up on the lower energies associated with currency, but now as you choose how to define currency in your life, that completely changes, and you are no longer then going to be as aware of energies from anybody else. It's your money. And yes, we use the word money because now there is an intrinsic value to it which you are creating and setting. So, although Dr. Kyra said use the word currency, we do still encourage you to do that. Only use the word money if you use the word my in front of it. My money, which is in units of appreciation and fun, or whatever you decide your units are. So use currency if you want to feel neutral about it, which is a good idea. Only use the word money if you have so changed the energy about it for you that you can actually feel comfortable that it is your money. You've created your own fiat currency, your own money with your own units of value behind it. And so now we're done with that meditation. I think that this is a really high-end, different way of conceptualizing money. Those of you who can do this are going to be on the really cutting edge of thought about this. And I do believe for many of this is the key that can shift the way we relate to currency by making it our own and knowing that we have every right to do that, and energetically it's completely possible. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I have a very exciting new program available, which is going to be providing daily support for you. It's in early development right now as I record this podcast, but go to drkyra.com looking for the daily support program, and you will find something about it. Its name might change a couple of times, but what I want to do is provide similar type of information that we just reviewed in this podcast. Really different paradigms and new ways of empowering ourselves daily. What I found in my life is that listening to positive messages and shifting my thought on a daily basis is what has made the hugest difference for me in finding my own power and living a life that is much more compatible for me as a sensitive soul, meaning that I am finding joy in living my life the way I want to live it. This is your host, Dr. Kyra. Thank you for being a part of the Strength of Sensitivity community. I would love to hear from you. Visit me at facebook.com/Dr. Kyra or at my website, drkyra.com/podcast, and leave a comment or email me with topic ideas or questions you'd like me to answer in this show. Did you find this podcast useful? If so, please subscribe to my channel, and I would be so grateful if you would share this with your friends. That's how, together, we will create the Strength of Sensitivity movement. If you want even more resources to create a life of balance, peace, and lighthearted joy, come on over to drkyra.com and make sure to sign up for the Sensitive Revolution email newsletter. Remember that your most important job is taking care of you. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to connect with you again in the next episode of The Strength of Sensitivity.